Hey yo, and welcome back to the letter! We are still playing as Rebecca. We've encountered Kylie and Luke. I forgot his name for a second. Tio Luke. But we don't know he's Tio Luke yet, and Rebecca has jumped to conclusions, whacked him on the head with a textbook, and we all know how heavy textbooks were back in the day, and then kicked him in the dick. That was a good moment. But let's see how he gets out of this one. He brought up his marriage for some reason. He's like, I'm married. Okay. Why are you talking to this small child? Who knows? Let's find out. But we already know. She must truly be a remarkable woman if she can handle a dirtbag like him.
And even my wife of all people in this bloody city, has never, I'm telling you, accused me of such a scandalous thing! You crazy woman!
Even though you cheat. Blatantly.
Married or not, you're still a sleaze. Honestly, I feel...
Miss Pink, why are you fighting with my Tio?
Whatever word still left to be said here dies on my tongue. The same thing goes for the sleaze. Besides us stands Kylie, gawking at us with the same curious stare she often brings with her. Like, in this situation, talk to the kid first. Don't just go around attacking people. Because, like, you know, there are people who adopt. And, like, you know, if you have, like, you know, an African American man with a white child, or an African American woman with, like, a white child, or whatever, gender, whatever, it's like, you know, yeah, it looks like, oh, we expect the kid to look like them, but there are situations where the kids don't look like their parents, and they are still their parents, or guardian, or whatever, aunts and uncles, taking care of people. This was not the way to go about this situation at all. I know that look all too well, a precious child through and through. She doesn't say anything further, her gaze simply moves between us, eyeing us both carefully, clearly anticipating an answer. From my experience, when it gets like this, with children her age, it's a sure sign they won't leave you until you've given them an answer they're satisfied with. Lying won't do either. It has dissolved into a shouting match, for heaven's sake. Did she just say Tio? Something falls straight into the pit of my stomach after that. But my tone is gentle when I address her, void of any apprehension, and what might be the first hint of embarrassment. I pointedly ignored the latter. It can very well be just the hunger speaking.
Kylie, sweetie, do you know this oath?
Yeah, he's Tio Luke.
Right at that moment, my brain stops. Every line of thought, every argument I still have against the man beside me, dissipates in a haze. And amidst all of it, one memory gets triggered from a few days ago.
Tio? The one you mentioned before? The uncle? The guy Rowan wanted to impress? Or was that a dare? I'm sorry, I can't recall. Is it the one who promised he'll take Big Brother someplace cool?
Yeah, the one and the same. Don't you know who he is?
I sure as hell don't, darling. Because if I do, I wouldn't have let everything I said earlier come out of my mouth.
He's my Tio Luke, gazillionaire extraordinaire, and the fairy godfather.
He's your godfather. That's nice.
The one and only. Did I get that right, Tio?
More than right, sweetheart. I'm sure Miss Pink here understood everything you said quite perfectly.
Whatever it is that landed at the bottom of my stomach prior has shot straight up into my face and stayed there. The heat from it slowly spreading to my cheeks, coloring my face almost the same shade as my hair. If only the earth would swallow me whole here and now. His eyes are on me, I can feel them, jeering, mocking. I can't even bring myself to look at them. What's in there? Amusement? I doubt it. He's probably having the time of his life right now. But I know I can hear the sneer in his tone alone when he talks. He has that smug grin on him. which I may or may not want to punch off his face at present. Just for the hell of it. But damage control. I need to do some damage control before the whole thing goes south. Apologize to Luke, apologize to Kylie. You did Luke wrong. You didn't really do Kylie much wrong. No, she is gonna look at you in a different light. But you need to apologize to the man that you whapped over the head! Though it pains me to apologize to a sleazebag like him, this is my mistake. With Kylie watching us close by, I don't want to set a bad example for her, do I? I'm surprised she grew up the child she is, if anything. I want to be the role model this man couldn't possibly become for her. Even if it means taking a few blows to my ego and stroking his insufferable one. A deep gulp of air, a short moment to swallow my self-respect, and then I'm facing him. The words are out of my mouth in a single breath.
I'm really, really sorry, sir.
The bigger person, achievement unlocked.
I had no idea.
His smirk is impossible to miss. He's not making an effort to hide it, and even the smile is so irritatingly present in his tone. If I could slap it off him, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Now, it's an honest mistake, Daisy.
No, I really mean it. I actually thought you were... And then...
It's fine now. It probably happens quite a lot to a few people who look suspicious to you. Seems I'm one of them now. But don't lose sleep over it. Do be careful with that book, though. A little more and you would have dislodged my poor brain off my head. What would I ever do if that happens?
Oh no! Did it leave a mark or anything? If you want, we can have it checked. I'll handle the expenses if there's a need for it.
Now, what kind of man would I be if I let an attractive woman such as yourself do that? Why don't we just look at it this way? My forgiveness is coming from the utter goodness of my heart.
Yes, your hollow heart. So full of himself. Exactly the kind of person I'll happily leave to die in a ditch somewhere.
Of course, sir. Why didn't I think of it that way?
I know, right? But even someone as capable as you is bound to have a few lapses. No harm done, Daisy. Let's move on from this.
Well, if you're going to put it like that, then I guess there's nothing left for us to talk about.
I figured as much.
Awkward. The whole exchange is nothing but an awkward display of fake pleasantries. One that brings much agony to the very pride I've willingly held back a while ago. I might need a drink later, so that I can forget any of this ever happened. Who would have thought the time would come when I'd meet someone tougher to handle than Isabella? Miracles of miracles, I swear. Though, to my surprise, he proffers me a hand shortly before they leave for a shake. I realize after a long minute of staring at it. Accept it, albeit half-heartedly. But all of the goodwill that small gesture represents melts into thin air when he winks at me. Winks. The gall of this man! However, there is no moment to ponder about it. Seconds later, the guy at the counter waves me over and hands me a paper bag as soon as I've paid. So you just assaulted this woman? I mean, you just assault this man and no one called anybody? He offers me another smile before I leave. Normally I'd return it simply for the sake of returning it, or I don't at all, with the latter happening more commonly. For the time being, I do so freely. After that encounter and the scene we've caused, seeing a friendly gesture being extended to me, albeit from a person I barely know, on a personal level, it feels like a reassurance despite bearing no promise of better days. I take what little I can of it with me and step out into the night. You just assaulted a man. A cloudless night sky greets me when I walk out of the cafe. Beyond the tall buildings, a blanket of stars spread out before me. Isabella once told me the best place to view is someplace outside the city, away from the noise and the obtrusive lights. She'd seen it once in her mom's hometown, and another time in the university she used to attend. Then she asked if it's possible to try it out here sometime. I agreed with her at the time, if only because she appeared excited at the mere prospect of it. We made those little plans along with Zachary and Ashton, though up until now, we never got around to it. Is this foreshadowing? Even so, I find myself enjoying this, despite being told it's only half the experience. Little things, you know? Stuff you learn to appreciate once you're alone. Because at certain times, you get to meet people who are unfortunately born with the innate talent to ruin the mood and the scene with their mere existence alone. For example, the very driver of the car fast approaching my direction. Luckily, he doesn't notice me. The fleeting moment we pass each other by gives me a brief glance at the people he's with. Kylie's sitting on the back seat with a serving of bread pudding in her hands. Oh, it's the ghost lady! And beside him, must be his wife? He takes a turn and disappears in the nearest corner. But throughout the night, that cursory glimpse of all things to bother me has left me wondering what kind of person his wife is. And more than that, is a silent prayer to the universe. I hope I don't ever cross paths with that douche again. You're gonna cross all the paths! After having such an eventful day, anyone will think nothing will surprise me anymore. But here I am, standing at the top of the stairwell, watching an odd scene unfold before me. Relief crosses my mind first, followed by confusion.
What is she doing there?
Although, given what happened this morning, the question feels a bit inappropriate to ask directly. What's important is Isabella's here. She's sitting cross-legged on the hallway, just right in front of a room, with several papers and folders scattered about. Each of them seems to be important as the next. More than once, upon giving the scene a quick scan, I spot Briar Realty logo at the topmost area of the pages. Everything considered, it looks like a mess made by a third grader working on crunch time. The landlady will have a few things to say about this when she finds out. I have a few things to say about it, myself in fact. But something in the calm, focused manner she holds herself at present keeps me from disturbing her with that reminder. She's going through each paper with this intensity. Her brows are furrowed, lips a tight line, both hands moving a precise movement as she shifts through each sheet. When she finds something of note, she moves closer, nose almost touching whatever paper she's holding, and grabs her phone to call someone.
Hello. Sorry to call you this late. There's something I just want to confirm, if that's okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks anyway. Not that one either.
It's a cycle. She goes through call after call, then after the last one, she shuffles through the pile again and dials another number. Is it work? I've never seen her this engrossed with her own work before. Otherwise, she would have noticed my presence the moment I reached our floor. After the 9th call, she still appears as oblivious to it as when I've arrived. When she lets out a loud sigh this time, I immediately take that as an opportunity to interrupt.
Isabella, you know the house rules here.
At once, her head jerks back and hits the concrete wall behind her with a thump. She already got hit there. There's the Isabella I know. Glad it's still there. I allow her for a moment to nurse it before speaking again.
Becca, you're late.
Yeah, I ran into a little trouble at the cafe. But I brought food for the two of us, if you haven't eaten anything yet.
As anticipated, she grins once I raise the bag of food I'm holding. Yet it doesn't reach her eyes. There's nothing but a cheerful glint in it this time. Just a hollow tone for the sake of being polite. Ashton's right. Something's happened.
Yeah, maybe later. I've gotta finish this first. Just leave it here. I'll eat it once I'm done. Thanks, Becca.
You can't eat this here. You know how the landlady would react. Why are you even working outside? Your room's right there.
I know. Sorry. It just feels stuffy in my apartment right now. I'll go back inside once everything's been aired out. I promise.
That has never bothered you before.
Well, it bothers me now.
Oh, really? Just now? I find that hard to believe.
Yeah? Shouldn't you be happy? I mean, you've been complaining even if it's not your room. Now I know how you're feeling when it's messy, so I'm going to clean. Isn't that a good thing?
In spite of what's supposed to be good news, an exhale comes from me, drawn out and slow.
It's a good thing, Isabella. Believe me. But you're as bad as Zachary at lying. What's really going on?
She hastily averts her eyes, a surefire indicator this is going to be one of those lengthy conversations that can possibly end with the other person angry. Again. It's one thing I'd like to avoid tonight at all costs. Still, I've made myself a promise to Ashton and Zachary. If she didn't talk to them, who else is she going to talk to? If she keeps it all to herself, who knows what might happen.
Isabella, you can tell me.
You told her she couldn't!
Is it about your family?
A slight movement of her lips. Although a frown is a reaction, at least. I'm getting there.
Rose?
She merely shakes her head. Just a little more.
Come on, I know something happened. I don't know if it's because of Rose, but I know it's related to her somehow. You weren't here when I visited this morning, and both Zachary and Ashton are worried about you. If you don't want to tell them, you can tell me.
Nope.
Does it have something to do with work? Office?
If I didn't know her, I might have missed it. She shifts then, her fist clenching tight, and teeth biting her lower lip, and there's fear. The look of terror in her is the last thing I expect to see out of everything. Her mouth trembles briefly before she opens them. When she finally voices it out, the words simply spill out of her mouth. One after the other. All of it. True to what I've promised her, I listen. Because this is something she's been keeping to herself, even from the two most dependable people I know. The fact she chose to tell me speaks lots to me.
Becca, she was there again. Last night? In the office? Boss passed me all of Rose's workload yesterday. For the Ermengarde mansion. I had to stay late to finish them all. And then... when I was about to go home, I saw her. I saw her again! She was standing in front of me again last night, Becca. I couldn't get away. She was blocking the door. If I hadn't hidden myself, even if I made the tiniest noise, if she found me, Becca, she almost did. If she saw me under my table, I think that would have been the end of it. I'm scared. I'm so scared I won't be able to do anything.
By the end, her hands are trembling, and her breathing comes out in rasping intervals. For a long moment, I let the silence stretch out between us. Let her sobs fill it instead. But even as her soft whimpers die down minutes later, there's a heaviness hanging in the air. Not from her. Oh, not just from her, but also from me. From my exasperation over this whole matter. From my own frustration over her stupid superstitions, where she could do us all a favor and grow a backbone. She may be young, but she's no longer that young. It's about time I put an end to this. She can't keep going on like this. She's still got plenty of years left to live. And what if she goes home? What if we're no longer there to keep her fears in line with what's real? What would she do then? I'm more afraid for her for what that kind of imagination will do to her than what some imaginary monster could. You saw it too. But with the manner she is looking at me right now, there's an expectation in it, a hope and a plea sewn together. She wants me to believe her this time. If it's like that, what am I supposed to say now? What she wants to hear, or what she needs to? Yo, she is crying. Don't be a bitch. Is this why you didn't come home? As much as I want to set her straight and reprimand, isn't what she needs right now. With that pouty face she's giving me, I'll doubt it'll even end well if I push it. I know her. Where she wants to be stubborn, she's stubborn. But when there's moments when she can be acquiescing too. Times where she'll be more accepting of what I tell her, despite her inclination to disagree with it. That talk can wait. In the meantime, I'll be the ear that listens to her without judging her, without criticizing her, despite my own opinions on it.
You should have called me.
She stares at me like I've grown another head, and laughter slips out before I can stop myself.
There? I can't do that! What will you do? Hit her with a book? You'll be dead before that happens. And
Well, she did just beat a man with a book.
That isn't what I'm talking about. After you got out, you should have phoned me. You didn't have to go to Zachary's.
The corners of her mouth curled up, a sheepish smile. By general definition, but this is Isabella, her smiles are never half-hearted. Never lacks her high spirits. In spite of this, I know everything's gonna be okay. Somehow. After all, she's learned to pick herself up long ago, before we met.
oh, yeah. Sorry. I don't even remember how I ended up in Zach's place. I was in a hurry to get out of the office, and it was already late. Besides, I don't really think you'll believe me if I wake you up over something like that.
That's beside the point. True or not, there are people who will always be concerned about you. There's Zachary, but he's the first person you went to, and you didn't tell him anything. You just slept there. There's Ashton too, and me. But how do you think I'll be able to explain to your aunt or your family if you suddenly disappeared? Think about that.
Right. I'll remember that next time.
Then she grins. Playful and mischievous, a preamble to an old banter. It's still not quite there. Still not quite her usual self, but with it, I know we're bound to get her back soon.
Mom!
I told you not to call me that.
I send an elbow to her side for added measure, but when laughter follows the familiar gesture, none of it is unexpected. This is what's comfortable. This is how we've found an equal ground despite our stark differences. She's laughing pretty easily after a bunch of traumatic moments. So for the moment, I accept things as they are. Afterwards, a hush stretches out before us. For Isabella, this is rare. This isn't her. Yet, in this moment, she fiddles with the edge of another paper near her as she hugs her knees close to herself and lets a pensive expression linger on her. It feels strangely fitting, as if this is where everything's supposed to lead, if we were allowed it long ago. Seconds later, the moment is broken by the sound of a door easing open and a voice begging some little peace.
How many times have I told you girls not to loiter around the hallway? It's noisy. Some people here are trying to sleep. Quiet down or go do your talking inside. I'm pinning a memo to your door the next time this happens. Millennials.
What?
Sorry, we won't do it again.
You'd better.
Okay. The door closes and Isabel starts gathering the mess she's made, carefully stacking them all in her arm. At a loss for what to do, I help her pick them. And for the first time, I get a closer look at it. Completely unintentional, of course, but it catches my attention nevertheless, and a confused frown makes its way to my face. Why is she looking through this? I look to her for an explanation, but she merely ignores the question in my eyes, takes the papers off my hands, and finishes cleaning up. The last paper she puts on top is a letter. The one she supposedly found in the mansion, and what's probably the root cause of this odd behavior. I shoot her a questioning look for that too, but all she gives me is a smile. In an halting tone, so completely unlike her,
Becca, I'll find a way out of this. You guys don't have to worry about me. Anyways, I should go. I'll see you later.
Where are you going?
Getting myself some food. Don't wait for me.
she just got you food! Isabella walks away before I can stop her, before I remind her that I've brought her but I've brought food enough for the two of us. She quickly disappears down the stairwell, while I'm left standing in an empty hallway, holding 2 bags of takeout. One of them will go uneaten tonight. Just an innocent passing thought. One that I don't dwell much on as I head back to my room. I ignore all of it in the same way I've assumed I won't ever encounter that douche again. You will. Thursday. The brief lull the past 2 days have offered is nice while it lasted. Or as nice as it can get with the worries of Isabella's whereabouts creeping up to me every now and then. She hasn't shown up after the last talk we had in the hallway, and the dinner I've brought had since been given to a different neighbor before it spoils. By all means, this shouldn't be anything to lose sleep over. She's gone on work trips before, usually for a day or two. This might simply be one of those. Although, it's often with a message saying exactly where. This is the dour note she has ended our last chat. But it's the dour note she has ended our last chat with that gnaws.
Like an ugly premonition.
And as expected, just as things start to settle and a steady rhythm finally worms its way back to my routine, Thursday morning brings further disturbance to the now calm waters. With little ceremony, though still enough to ripple through everything. In retrospect, I really should have seen this coming. Luxembourg is a small city, relatively speaking, compared to, say, London or Glasgow. It's nothing but a tiny mass of land, boasting a mere population of 68,000. But those numbers alone are nothing to scoff at when standing in a busy street. And if you pay close enough attention, faces taking the crosswalk or riding the subway will soon grow familiar. How unfortunate that out of that number, it has to be Teal fucking Luke that I encounter more than once.
Oh, you know, a few problems popping up here and there that the agents failed to tell us somehow. Nothing a few hired hands can't fix, of course. I would have preferred a place near the city and something that's new to save us all the trouble, but darling wife insisted. Who am I to say no?
Are you kidding me?
His smug head is the first thing I see upon turning the hall, in spite of the small crowd of parents and students gathered at the corridor for the primary career day. It's not that he stands out, he's pretty unremarkable at first glance, frankly. However, it's his countenance that draws people's eyes to him. The manner he carries himself with all the confidence in the world, his mere presence dwarfing everything around him. I'm willing to make the bet he's also enjoying the attention it garners him, especially the ones coming from the women.
What an ass.
A single glance at him and I know immediately that one way or another if we ever bump into each other again, my day will effectively be ruined in some capacity. He also exudes that air. The sort that makes you want to run him over with a lorry and pass it off as an unfortunate accident. With him, it's either you want to punch him, or let yourself be charmed. There's no in-between. I'll gladly do the honor of the former myself, but at last, there are people around us, and I've already hit him with a book. Now I'm stuck with having to face one of the two.
I shouldn't have volunteered.
At the time, helping out sounded like a good idea. I've no class left today until after lunch. I could have opted to stay at the teacher's lounge and work on my lesson plans, but that means being left alone with our deputy head and his chatter. He's a good man, but Crivens, he can talk anyone's ear off. So the moment an opportunity rose, I jumped on it. It's a simple task to boot. Just deliver a whole box of materials and a few posters for the event, maybe stay around to assist if time will allow it. I just wasn't expecting him to show up here. Out of the frying pan and into the fire. Had I known, I would have stayed and suffered through our deputy's impromptu speeches about his life crisis instead. But what's done is done. Going back is also out of the question. With how unexpectedly heavy the load I'm carrying is, I'd hate to lug this for a trip back just because my pride can't take another second of interaction with this guy. He's insufferable, alright, but I've had my fair share of dealings with teens of more or less the same temperament, all considerably younger than him, and they listened. If he wants to be difficult like last time, so be it. But he can bet his sorry English ass I'm not standing down. Left with no other choice, I brace myself and suck in a breath, mustering every bit of patience I have as I step into the hall. My grip on the box tightens when I pull it closer to me and attempt to assume a low-key air as I amble towards the room. The box is not big enough to hide my face, even with the stuff piled on top, but if all else fails, I can just hit him with it. Still a small prayer forms in my head. If there's anyone listening out there, please grant me enough restraint. Better yet, I hope he doesn't notice me at all. That'll definitely make my life easier. Seriously, how hard can it be? He's standing a few ways from the door, and there's plenty of people between us to use as cover. If I'm careful, I can just go in and hand the stupid box to whoever's in charge, forget every plan of staying longer than necessary, and step out as soon as I can. Easy as pie. But as luck would have it, that exact moment I reach the room's threshold, someone barrels towards me. She latches onto my waist before topping the sudden commotion with a gleeful squeal.
I knew it's you!
The force of it nearly throws me off balance, sending the item stacked on the top tilting dangerously to the sides. With the child's added weight at my waist pinning me on the spot, and both my hands occupied, watching is the only thing I'm able to do. The short seconds in between slows as everything gradually slides off the box's small surface. Under different circumstances, this would have made for a funny story some other time. Comical, even. Until another set of hands reach out and steadies the posters, threatening to take a nosedive right to the floor.
Oh, careful now, Daisy. Don't make a mess here.
My entire body freezes. Upon hearing his voice alone, an irrational impulse to hit him immediately bubbles up. But before my limbs could catch up with what my brain is currently screaming at me, he moves to take the burden off my arms. Irration gives way to surprise, then confusion. It's in that moment when instinct finally kicks in and I tug the box closer to me before he can fully lift it off.
What are you doing?
What does it look like?
You're surprisingly slow on the uptake for someone of your profession, aren't you? Bloody, doesn't this school have people for this kind of work? So much for being a center of academic excellence.
I'm going to ignore that slight to my alma mater and my work, because that's not what I'm trying to get at. You know what? Why don't we just rephrase that to something you'll easily understand? Why exactly are you doing this?
Well, you look like you could use a bit of help. Have you seen your face while you were heaving this around?
Mister, I'm pretty sure if there's ever a look on my face, it's entirely because I saw something extremely unpleasant this morning.
Ooh.
Aren't you a ball of sunshine today, Daisy? Having a bad day, aren't we?
Oh, you have no idea.
I'd put it away if I were you. You might scare the children.
You don't have to worry about that. This isn't my department. I was just asked to bring these. Anyway, I can handle this myself, mister. The room's just right over there. Behind you, in fact. Now, if you could please move over and make way, it would do the whole world some good.
Keeping my voice level throughout this miracle in itself, but regardless of how polite my request is, he doesn't budge. Did what I've just said merely fly over his head? Were my choice of words really that difficult to comprehend? Surely it shouldn't have been that hard. I think he might be a little touched in the head. I like to ask him that, actually, but Kylie chooses that instant to pipe in.
Don't worry, Miss Pink. Tio's strong. You can leave this to him. My papa does it lots of times. but I'm not allowed to talk about it to anyone.
What?
Tio says it's
Confidential, Munchkin.
That's right. Tio's smart, isn't he, Miss Pink?
I'm still of the opinion that he's a piece of shite, but I must admit his goddaughter's excitement is contagious as always. Ha! Hoo! Hiya! I am out of time again! And we will continue this another time. Kylie has a very interesting view of Luke, and he doesn't seem to treat her any nicer than anyone else. Unless that's just like that one instance, or like a rare instance of an example. But I don't know, it seems like he just treats everyone pretty poorly. And I'm curious, because this is an interesting character for her to be interacting with, I guess, because everyone has like, I guess, interacts with like a couple of the characters in their chapters, and for this to be the choice for Becca is interesting. I wonder if there's like different endings with those two. But alas, thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I post. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!